The meeting to order.
Let's call the meeting to order. EDAC on Tuesday, August 18th. Roll call, please.
Chair Malone.
Here.
Vice Chair Collins. Here. Members Hanson. Here. Leonard. Ryan. Here. Webb.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Young.
Great. Let's do the pledge. Vicki, you want to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible.
Okay. Item 1 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion we approve the minutes.
Second? I'll second. Mike?
Roll call. Chair Malone.
Yes.
Vice Chair Collins.
Yes.
Members Hanson. Leonard.
Yes.
Ryan. Yes. Webb.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Young. Motion carried.
Okay. Item 2 is public comments. Were any comments sent in from anyone?
No, I did not receive any public comments.
Oh, okay. Item 3, discussion items and actions. So we have staff report, EDAC questions, and then public comments, and then EDAC discussion and action. So let's start off with the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. This is your third opportunity to consider the Small Enterprise Assistance Loan Program, the SEAL program. You'll note that in the framework, which is attachment A, virtually all of EDAC members' recommendations for this program have been incorporated. I'll remind you that it's designed not only for crisis conditions like the one we're in now, or coming out of now, but also it's designed to be an asset to the business community in good times as well, so that small businesses can expand when the opportunity is right. The loan amounts are up to $20,000 pursuant to your recommendations, and they're available at low interest rates. In fact, the first 18 months, also pursuant to your suggestions, are interest-free, regardless of what the economic conditions are. Businesses, as well as nonprofits, again an EDAC recommendation, can use these funds for either physical improvements or working capital. The SEAL program, we think, has the simplicity and the flexibility that is required to make it a success in both good times and bad. I hope you've had an opportunity to review attachment A. It reflects what we think will be the final framework to go to City Council. It is really a product of your contributions. So at this time, we recommend, unless there are some other recommendations, that you forward this to the City Council for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. So is there any comments on this? Okay.
First of all, Roger and Andy, thank you so much. This is beautiful. This is everything that I personally would have, that I wanted. I think it's a great asset to our community and to the small businesses, and it will eventually help bring more economic growth to our city because we have something like this to help sustain and improve our businesses in town. So I want to thank you very much. And I recommend that we vote yes on this, or vote for it, or do a vote.
Okay.
Motion.
Does anyone else have any? Yes, Sigrid.
Okay, I have a couple of things. Required documentation, I was thinking about this, and I appreciate everything that's on here. I'm wondering if we shouldn't also require tax returns with QuickBooks programs that are out there and a little bit of savviness on the part of a business owner. They could, in 7 hours, create a P&L and a recon that might look very promising, but may not hold its legitimacy. So maybe asking for those tax returns might be best as well, just to support it a little bit more, and also to let the citizens here know that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that these businesses are sustainable. The second thing, when it comes to the loan committee, I'm hoping Roger or Andy or even your finance department will come up with some type of standardized forms for the process. As much as I think all of us could look at paperwork, I think that standardized forms would be necessary to make sure that there's no discriminatory practices and propriety that might be alleged, why one person got it and not another. And then, Andy, I appreciate the fact at the end, at the last meeting, that you had mentioned that you'd go to the city to ask for $100,000 to be put aside for this. Roughly, it was just you threw out a number. But if we're going to do this, knowing how many businesses we have in this town, I think if the city council is going to really look at this, they need to be really invested in this kind of a program. And it's not uncommon to, I would like to say, you know, see if the city council is willing to set aside $500,000 to $1 million for a project like this, because then we're not talking about 5 businesses getting $20,000 each, but we're talking about 30, 40, 50 businesses that all could get somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000. So those are just that's my input.
I'd just like to say something else, just Sigrid, to piggyback. I think the standardized form is a good idea. As far as tax returns go, if you're a small business, don't you think you're going to make it look like you make as little as possible so you can write off everything? It's hard enough. So most small businesses write off as much as they can, so maybe it doesn't look like they make what they might make, or that they, you know, whatever it is that you're asking for in a tax return. I don't think it's really going to make a difference. And it might stray somebody from asking for the help that they need, so the next year their tax return might look better, if that makes sense. And I think $1 million is a little bit too much to start with. I think a smaller amount, maybe more than 100,000, but $1 million might be a little bit too much to start with at first. We're not that big of a city. So maybe a couple 100,000, but that's my opinion.
Comment? Excuse me, Tara, which cap? Do you mean the pool? Yeah, so my recommendation was going to be, let's come up with a plan. If this is approved, we should recommend a plan over the next 5, 6 years, 10 years, whatever, based on the fiscal solvency of the city and the availability of cash, because I can see how this might change over time. If things get better, then the demand wouldn't be as high, whereas when things get rough, maybe we should have a rainy day fund or something like that. But yeah, I recommend there should be a plan in place for that in the future. Anyone else? Andy?
Yeah, I have a comment. The one thing that I'm still a little bit fuzzy on is we have a loan committee that's going to approve the loans, I guess, or recommend the approval to the council, or however that's going to work. My concern is do we have a published criteria within the city to say, okay, this is what if it's a sole proprietorship, this is what your credit score needs to be, or if you're a small corporation, this is what the requirements are. I mean, there should probably be some criteria that we can fall back on, just so we can't say that later on somebody says, oh, well, there's preferential treatment given to person A versus person B. Because everyone needs to fall within whatever that criteria is. There's going to be a certain amount of subjective considerations by the committee, but there has to be a foundation, I believe, of what the minimum criteria should be.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Having that and being very objective is most definitely the best way to fall back on, because it's really not about our committee or the city council. It really falls back on what are Norconians going to think about this in the end, because we're going to be loaning their money, or I should say the city will be loaning their money. So having criteria where it is very objective, standardized, we might, and that might be the finance department to put that together, with the help of Roger, of really fine tuning within the required documents, what are we going to look for? Credit scores might be a great way of doing that.
Yes, please.
That's why I want to how to generate participate. What are the criteria? Yeah, we'll look at developing something. In terms of the amount that average this one. How about the rest of the city?
So this is this plan, the promissory note, it's similar to what we've done before, is that correct? With, yeah.
Yeah, so the promissory note basically. Then the city council.
Right, but we've done this in the city before, is that correct?
Yeah, for most of the pickup.
Right. Okay.
But it's still an unsecured loan, right?
It is unsecured loan,
Okay.
definitely.
Right, right.
And that's why it's the minimum's 5,000, maximum's 20,000. I mean, it's not gigantor, because it's not supposed to be a Band-Aid. It's supposed to be a help aid to get it to improvements and things. So many people last year were complaining about roofs that were leaking and storefronts, but maybe that people couldn't afford to just put another 10,000 in to fix their storefronts. So this is an opportunity to take advantage of that through the city at a low rate, knowing that your city backs you is nice.
I agree. I think it's a great idea, and for me, I just wanted to make sure that we had criteria straightened out, because we don't want to be in an issue later on to where we're all standing up taking arrows and stones from the people in Norco asking about this. So,
Right.
I think this is a great idea. I do think that we need to create a pathway for our businesses to open, because in speaking with people, that are being really hit hard, salons, restaurants that are really taking the blunt end of this, you can give somebody $5,000-$10,000, but unless you have business, I feel like it's just putting more of a burden on someone by giving them another loan that they already have gotten throughout this. So I think that it would be our duty to start thinking along with this of a pathway to open our businesses, because in all reality, we have at least 3 months left of this. So what are we doing to help getting our businesses open? We have to get our restaurants open. These salons are trying to seat people outside in 108-degree weather. Like, regardless of if we give them a loan, it's not going to do anything if they're not open.
Right.
But I think it's also, this isn't just like for this immediate moment. This is ongoing. This is something that we
Right.
talked about previously before this COVID started, something to help the small businesses. So we have to look at it. I think you're talking about a completely separate sort of subject. This is something that we've been working on for a couple of years and talked about to help our small businesses in general. The COVID part, that's something that we need to discuss separately, I think, from this. And that has to do with what they're doing with the money. Is it that they have business, but they don't have enough business, so they need to continue their payroll? Is it that, that's a different, more in-depth subject when they apply for something like this?
Right.
Where are they at right now? Is this just going to add to other loans that they've already taken and they're not going to pay it back? I mean, that's what the loan committee has to look at. But I think going forward in general, this is a really nice program for existing businesses to upgrade and do things that they need to do.
Right. So I think that the way that it's written today is probably good. I think that the loan committee that gets formed, along with Roger and the economic development team, is to develop that objective criteria for the loans and write it down somewhere, so that when they do apply for the loan with the standard form that will be developed, then it'll be consistent across the board. I don't know that adding anything to this structure or framework needs to be changed to go to the council. However, I do think that there's some work that still needs to be done behind the scenes.
Who do you think you would want to be on a loan committee, Andy?
Yeah, I think we would.
But to Nicole's point about that really doesn't require.
Thank you. So I think
With all of, I agree with just about everything that everybody has said. I do think that the fact that objective criteria will be included could be added to this document.
sure.
Maybe under the loan committee, that the recommendations are based on objective criteria, because that is really important.
I think that's really important, yeah. So if you could amend that to include objective criteria, doesn't need to be specific, I don't think, at this point, but
And
we'll
keep-
eventually make a manual or something that identifies
Yeah,
that.
keep in mind that this is just a conceptual framework. Staff is already working on more detailed guidelines for applicants, which will also help the loan committee establish their criteria. Definitely, this will be, more detail will be created, absolutely.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then regarding the loan committee itself, it'll be probably taken care of within our group here once it's approved, and we'll decide which 3 members would be best for that. Project for another day. So do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and motion to move this forward.
Thank you.
A second.
Yep.
Roll call, Chair Malone,
Yes.
Vice Chair Collins,
Yes.
Members Hanson,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Ryan, Webb,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Young. Motion carried.
Great. Any public comments regarding this thing?
There were no public comments, and those would have been provided before a vote was taken.
Understand, thank you. Okay. Let's go to staff communications then. Okay. City Manager or Coral, do you have anything else? Okay, thank you. All righty.
Oh, maybe I should say something.
Please do.
7-Eleven has submitted the have any thoughts on this? You wanna-
Thank you.
Is there any word when they're gonna start up again on CarMax?
Well, yeah, I spoke to. This is one of them.
Excellent. Okay, that's the end of the agenda. Meeting will be adjourned at 8:42.